Welcome back to Krown's Crypto Cave as we get started for a nice little early morning on Wednesday here from a very dark and gloomy and absolutely lovely Helsinki, Finland. I fucking love it when it's not hot as fuck outside. I hate sweating, and there's plenty to talk about on good old Bitcoin right now. We did hit our short-term targets to the downside at about 10,600-ish region. I would think I said yesterday 10,550, close enough being close enough, and Bitcoin coming back into range, of which that is essentially going to kind of round out the buys for the next couple days here going into the end of the week. Today's a very big day though, however, because we do have the FOMC meeting for discussing interest rates essentially, which typically does mark some pretty major pivots on the market as far as the dollar index goes, and of course the dollar index being what pretty much everything is trading against, or I mean the dollar may be better said being what everything else is trading against. That is going to be very, 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 very relevant going forwards here. So I believe that's going to be around midday-ish for those of you in the Western Hemisphere, and that's something that I really want to be paying attention for as everyone gets extremely bullish on all the good old magic internet monies and the metals and whatnot. But right now is the time to be a little more cautious, as I believe we've kind of seen all the easy moves from this. We've seen all of our all of the areas that we wanted to see hit, and realistically now I believe is kind of the time to watch and then set it up for the next weekly and monthly closure coming on Friday, and of course Sunday for spot markets for Bitcoin. Anyways, looking at the open interest right here, we see that it's still kind of hovering around that 2.3 billion marker. Don't really need to make too much out of that right now, as we do see the next sort of major macro level kind of within Bitcoin sites right now at 11,500. So the next sort of thing that I want to be looking at this and documenting going forwards here, as this information is still relatively novel and we don't really have a baseline to measure it against just yet, is what the open interest would read if Bitcoin actually does break 11,500 to the upside. Now, by the same token, to the downside, we do want to be very cognizant of that 10,500-ish level correlated with the open interest read at that time as well. But for right now, this is more or less just me talking to myself because I don't have anything to make off of that. Again, this information here, as far as I know, we're the only ones documenting this with the tools that we have, which, after seeing kind of like behind the scenes, I drastically mistrust just about all cryptocurrency statistics coming from exchanges, and but I can say that this right here is proper, and we can stand by this. So going forwards, it's more or less going to be an experiment until we get probably like another year or two of data, I would imagine. Looking at the fear and greed index, we've actually ticked down about 5 points as Bitcoin essentially puts in a consolidation at the top side of the range. Bitcoin dominance pretty much steady at that 62.5% range after bumping up about 2% even, which is rather powerful. So it would suggest that while Bitcoin does rally, while Bitcoin does kind of take the reins for a little bit, most alts are not going to be able to keep up pace with Bitcoin, as we typically do see that trend emerge from the past. So altcoins versus Satoshi is probably not going to be doing all that well, assuming that Bitcoin does retain its bullishness. And that also does mean vice versa. If Bitcoin does go down, do we expect altcoins to go up? Are we in that sort of a phase or set? If we are, that actually be very indicative that Bitcoin is really truly, not just Bitcoin, but the whole cryptocurrency market is truly in a like a macro up phase, as that's typically the only time that we really see those sorts of relationships. Everything else pretty much steady here. So let's get into the actual charts themselves, starting off with Mr. Moose going to fucking Mars. No, just kidding. That was your last chance right there. Just kidding again. I shouldn't be that direct in saying these sorts of things, but this really does start to look like a massive top being put in place to me. I think we'll come back to this one later, because right now it is rather fun to be talking about Bitcoin. But no. Let's go over here to Nasdaq. So we did get the pop up in Nasdaq that we were looking for yesterday, all the way up to the 10,750-ish region, selling off immediately and coming back down to the low side of the range at 10,500-ish region right here. Now, I do think that it's still a little bit premature to get bearish is the wrong word, but looking for a major macro reversal here just yet. I do think that there is going to be some downside, probably bring this baby back down to 24th of July low, somewhere around 10,400-ish region, but I would not really constitute a break of that just yet. The structure is still, is still relatively okay, and I imagine that it probably does move quite a bit off of FOMC meeting later today. But the question is, are we going to go into a further evolution of this rotation in the market that we see, where techs once again lead to the upside? Well, if it does, what I'd expect to see today is actually another grind back down to that 10,350, 10,400-ish low, and then close today somewhere around the 21 exponential moving average above 10,500. If that happens, the upside is still alive here. If we do close a healthy healthy daily dildo, especially below about 10,450, but even below the 10,500-ish level is kind of problematic as well. Then I would be looking for a greater retracement coming into the opening of next month, all the way down to the low $10,000 region, which would be a nice and even round number as well. Good psychological number. Anyways, that will help drive the buys for Bitcoin as well, as we do see techs essentially lead this cycle. And if techs maintain their bullishness, or at least maintain their footing right here, it would be actually the main interpretation of Bitcoin's chart, just with the long-term bullishness still kind of emerging from this area, of which I really think that we just need to see these. I think that we really need to just see Friday's closure is going to be the biggest clarifying sector on that. Anyways, looking at this right here, I do think that today's action should be rather interesting. And while I don't necessarily have like a full, or I think that, like, realistically with Bitcoin right now, while we are dealing with bigger ranges, which does offer up quite a bit of opportunity, I do think that, the easy trades and the fun part has kind of been had for now. We're probably going to spend a little bit of time waiting here. But overall, we did hit that 10,600-ish level from yesterday. I believe I said 10,500, or sorry, 10,550 was where I was looking for a pullback. Probably coming to like next week. Bitcoin gives it to you in the next couple hours. Fair enough. This is again why I don't think that time analysis is something that I just not something that I do, or that I think can even really be done. The closest again is historical volatility percentile reads, which speak more towards probabilities and statistics rather than like actual like timing of the move exactly at this point. As it stands right now, the 4-hour is flagging out at a high level, and it's hard to hate this. It's more or less healthy. Anytime that you are grinding a resistance or grinding support, you typically do break in that direction, or at least it's a lot more likely to. And so with the range being created in the way that Bitcoin did bounce off that 10,500-ish level, or 10,600-ish level, I suppose, yesterday, which I believe we were documenting on this chart right here. Yeah. Okay. So I had this, actually I had this 10,650, So we got a little bit lower than that actually. Okay. So $50 away. Close enough is close enough as far as I'm concerned. Let's go actually to a fresh chart and kind of do this one fresh as of kind of today. And what I'd be looking at right here is I'd be looking at the short term using the 4-hour, kind of judging the 10,150 11,150. Jesus Christ, man, I can't get my numbers out properly. Right here as kind of the next sort of harbinger for the upside in the short term, and for the downside short term, I'd be looking at 10,900. If Bitcoin does break 10,900 again on a 4-hour delta closure, especially, I would look for an overall move back down to about 10,550, 10,600-ish once again, funnily enough, which we do have 4-hour bearish divergence present, and I do believe that was the move down that we saw the other day. The problem is that if Bitcoin does fail to get continuation here, probably in the next day or two, which it is looking like it's going to line up for another test at least of 11.2 and probably 11.5. Assuming that if that test does get rejected once again, then we can probably talk about another deeper retracement into the mid 10,000s. But realistically, as I've been saying, it's the weekly and monthly that I really want to have a massive focus on, because we've kind of hit all the easy areas for now, and I'd really just be looking for a range to be established here. And from the monthly perspective, I think it's very it's very clarifying on the long-term nature of this, as any sort of a closure, especially above these June highs of 2019, is going to look massively good for continuation coming into the next few months, August, September, October region, with extremely likely a test back up to 14,000 and perhaps beyond after that as well. Although I do think that it's a little bit outside of the context of this current conversation to get like super moon boyish type bullshit going on. But as it stands right now, we do see that Bitcoin's going to very likely have a chance to actually complete that. And if it does close again anywhere above about 10,800 especially, I would be looking for at the very least a test towards 14,000 and very likely beyond as well, because we kind of already got that backfill coming in from June 2019 with the 20,000 December closure right here. Obviously the closure was not at 20,000, it was at 14,000. So reapproaching that area, there's not a backfill option. Again, it probably does get taken out, and we do then we get to do some more fun stuff, I suppose. But for right now, things are looking more or less well and good on the higher term time frame, setting up for a good Friday closure. Again, 2 days left in the trading month can mean all sorts of crazy things, but for right now, it's looking good. We do see that monthly Stokes are pointing nice and northward, and more importantly, rejecting the bearish control zone. Monthly jewel bouncing off, giving you a hodl your long signal as well, all the way back to April of this year. That was this low right here, confirmed right here in May. And then monthly RSI actually looks a lot more healthy than all of these, funnily enough, because it is looking like more or less accumulation within this region. You can even call this an inverted head and shoulders right here as well, with the neckline at this 59 region, which will be confirmed broken actually on Friday, assuming that we close anywhere here or higher, funnily enough. And looking at this, it would say, it would look like this was essentially an accumulation zone going all the way back to beginning of 2020, culminating in March 2020, and now getting resolved about half a year later. So with all of that kind of setting up for very likely a good closure on Friday, although again not confirmed just yet. I would kind of use that to drive the biases going onwards and forwards in April, August, and September, essentially. As far as the bi-monthly and quarterly go, we don't really have anything new to talk about there because they haven't changed in 2-3 months. Anyways, let me just make sure that I'm recording. I am recording. Whoa, it looks like I'm in a fucking strip club right now. This is cool. All right. Just wait till I get more of my lights. You haven't even seen my second target just yet. But let's go down now to, I believe we closed the 2-day and 3-day last night. Yeah, 2-day closing on new highs as well. Very, 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 very nice. I still do think that Bitcoin will actually come back down and test around 10.5, 10.6 again, but probably, maybe coming into next week. Even though Bitcoin did get that test down yesterday, I do think that it's very likely to come back and do the same thing again. Oh, also, for all the volume motherfuckers out there, well, I guess I already touched on that the other day, but it was it's quite funny. It's quite enlightening to see all the people like spewing this fucking volume meme saying that, but the volume on the breakout's not good. They're judging like an hourly. They're judging like they're judging like the first few hours of a full 24-hour session and saying that it's low. I mean, it's just silly, and this is also why I like volatility, because I think it's just more, it's less abound with fuckery that for some reason people just get caught up in this. I don't know where this comes from. I really don't. I really even barely had a focus on volume when I was trading traditional markets, funnily enough, even though it does matter, of course, but everything should kind of, play with each other anyways in some sort of fractal nature, which you should be. I just think that there's more dependable things to be watching, like volatility. They're going to be telling you about the same, not about the same thing, but volatility is just more versatile and more useful overall and more dependable from what I've seen. Anyways, what should we be looking at here? All right, let's go back over here. I think that I made this a fresh chart now, so realistically the ranges are getting rather tight. Let's go check out our lower term time frame oscillators, of which the 4-hour is looking like it is riding a very aggressive trend line coming in back from early July. Let me just draw this one in right here. It's getting more and more aggressive as time goes on. And yes, this typically does happen during strong trending action. Something like this. You could probably just draw a straight regression, through here as well. Some like that essentially is what it typically does work out with on Stokes. Less so on other indicators, but Stokes do seem to operate rather well in that regard. And this would suggest that if we are going to see this continue on in a more bullish fashion right here, with the bias that this is going to break to the upside, and that would be a resolution with a closure above about 10. Or sorry, I keep on saying 10. 11,000. Actually, it's more like 11,200. Sorry, I think I said 11,150 earlier, but it's actually it is more appropriate to say 11,200. Yeah. Okay. Closure 75. Okay. Fair enough. Let's see what would be needed to maintain, get another cross on our momentum oscillators back up to the upside on this time frame. That would be maintained with any sort of a closure above about, especially 11,000, but even all the way down to 10,981, which is essentially where the 10 simple is on the 4-hour. Funny how those things work out, isn't it? It's natural confluence now, isn't it? Funny. Not so funny. Anyways, it's fucking stupid. But typically these things should naturally agree with each other, and in this case they do. So I'd be watching that area right now, because if Bitcoin does put in a higher low right here, even on the 4-hour, we will also confirm hidden bullish divergence going all the way back to even this point right here, 26th of July at 11 a.m., which was this low right here. Or sorry, maybe this low right here all the way down to 10.2. So that'd be quite aggressive overall, and that would align with at least another test back up to 11,200-ish region. And at that point, does it actually break or not? Well, If it does break, I'd be looking for a measure move, very likely, another $300 higher towards 11,500, the current high on this rally. And at that point, that's where things do get interesting once again. But it really only gets interesting from a higher term time frame closure. And I would even back away from using a daily right now, mostly because the monthly is so soon, and I just don't think it takes that much patience to trade this one. What I do want to say right here, though, is that I'm sure a lot of people are going to look at this as like a long-legged doji dildo coming in confirmed yesterday, the 27th of July, with the way that it kind of closed there and think a reversal. I think that's very unlikely, to be honest with you. Bitcoin just broke to the upside, and it's very likely that we actually continue trend more than anything here. And that was kind of the first pullback within this, and consolidated at a high level once again does look more or less good. So if I did have to kind of call it right now, I would say that I'd be overall bullish on this, looking for this to continue higher, with very likely a pullback sometime in the next week or two, once we get the new monthly down to that 10.5 or 10.6 ish region. The key critical point is a major question mark right now, as I look directly in the camera with my these lights look crazy right now. But the key thing really is, in a more serious tone, is the FOMC meeting today. That's a question mark right now. I don't know how. We obviously don't have the information on that, unless you're like quite literally an insider with the Fed. Then no one really knows. But it would be a very interesting proposition right now for the Fed to take some action, because everyone knows that the dollar is kind of faltering and failing right now. If we go look at the dollar index, it's quite literally in free fall, and I think that it does have a little bit lower to go. I wouldn't be surprised if we do see it at 91.5. Somewhere around the 200 on the monthly, by the way, before seeing the next potential major reversal there. But very long term, I'm actually massively bullish on this. But that's like 5 to 10 years out. Short term, I'm actually massively bearish on this. This is a hard chart to love. Could it get a bounce back up to $95? Perhaps yes, but overall, any sort of closure below the 55 at $95, and I'd be looking for extension further south towards the 200 on this time frame, and then probably a major low being put in right there. Do these things line up with each other in time? Yes. If you look at the macro, it very likely will, but I sincerely want to see what they say today first before making any other moves realistically. And I'll probably be in bed before that even gets resolution to begin with. So I won't know until tomorrow. So I'm pretty much going to close positions and just watch for today. I don't like trading with question marks in the back of my mind. But it is rather interesting proposition here. So I would be defensive. Does that imply that we probably do have another leg down on Dixie, which would equate to very likely another leg up on on most assets? Probably yes, but that next leg would likely be the next big pivot. These things don't always trade opposite of each other, but in this environment right now, they very likely will. Anyways, let's go back to Bitcoin. Okay, let's go back to our lower term timeframes, because that's actually where most of the action is happening right now. And let's see, is there anything else that I missed? So 4-hour historical volatility percentile is actually red as a devil's dick, which would suggest that we are looking for, some consolidation and a little bit of a contraction phase here. So while Bitcoin is consolidating at a high level, if it does fail to get fall through sooner rather than later, then we will actually see this contraction phase again, very likely bring it back down to that 10,500-ish level. Looking at the 3-hour, it looks like it's in the process of setting in a higher low as well. It does have the same sort of hidden bullish divergence right here, going all the way back towards 26th of July low at 1,300. So that'd actually be all the way over here, funnily enough, at when Bitcoin was at 9,900. So these are going to very likely operate rather powerfully. And I actually do think the more that I look at this, the more, if I was just looking at straight up Bitcoin, nothing else, I would actually be looking for Bitcoin to put in another leg up, at the very least test 11,200 again. And this would look like a good proposition for it to actually, have a full on breakage of that level, initiating the next move towards 11,500. That, potentially could land around the time that we see one of the higher term timeframes closing, at which point that would really start to drive the macro buys for the next big move. As of right now, I want to be very steady in stating this, that I'm only looking at short term stuff right here, because I do think that the long term stuff, we've already hit. We saw that 11,500 region, we came back down to 10.6 region. That's those were the trades right there. Now it's just ranging once again. So looking at momentum oscillators, we will cross 3-hour Stokes back up to the upside. And by the way, they are kind of meeting this regression right here, and defending against the bullish control zone, or dropping out of it. If Bitcoin does close this next 3-hour dildo above 11,050, which is coming in 40 minutes. So we actually will be able to see this one together. If that happens, not only will we cross up 3-hour momentum oscillators back up to the upside, but we'll also see that hidden bullish divergence confirmed. And at the very least, I'd be looking for a test back up to 11,200. And again, it would have a good proposition to actually break there. Looking at the 2-hour, I want to see this one fall through as well. This one's already kind of put in a low right here, although it's less it's less solidified, and I really think that the 3-hour will probably confirm or deny it. But same sort of setup here as you'd imagine. It should naturally follow that a lower term time frame will have even more aggressive hidden bullish divergence, which we do. We see the same thing going back to July 26, 1300 my time, Eastern European time zone that is, and we will see 2-hour momentum oscillators turn back up to the upside. Again, riding this trend line right here, all kind of a variation of each other with any sort of a 2-hour dildo closure above 11,000 even. So all these things, naturally go with each other. The 2-hour and 3-hour are going to be closing at the same time in the next 39 minutes. So if, by the time that I post this video, you'll know yourself, and that would very likely drive another move back up to 11.2, at which point, if we do close above 11.2, I look for extension to 11.5, kind of in a more direct tone right there. And of course, this is not financial advice, and I'm not a financial advisor, but I'm just kind of sharing how I'd be looking at these markets and, what I'd be doing in these that sort of same situations, which may or may not be relevant to you, may or may not be helpful. And of course, I can always be massively, absolutely wrong. Looking at the hourly right here, same sort of thing. I mean, it's an uptrend. It's kind of flagging out. Or not flagging out, but making an ascending triangle, which is a bullish reaccumulation formation. Same sort of shit here as well. Already confirmed hidden bullish divergence, 1, 2, 3 drives. And momentum also just turned back up to the upside above 1160, which these have had a full reset here almost as well. So I do think that things are lining up for another test to the short-term upside. Does Bitcoin actually break there or not is a real question. This obviously looks good. This is a very low time frame, but I feel like the other underlying market dynamics going on right now, especially with regards to how the FOMC meeting goes, is going to be very, 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 very important with judging kind of like the next macro bias. Now, I absolutely fucking despise trading or trading during these times where it's more in some ways fundamental than technical, which it will be for today. It should set the tone. But that's why we want to be looking at all the different assets, because they should naturally agree with each other as people jockey for position coming into this. Obviously some of them having insider information, even though that's definitely illegal. But their positions will naturally show up, and their biases will naturally show up in the charts. Looking at gold right here, I think that this one's also going to be, typically does trade with Bitcoin. And what do we see? We see a clear. A lot of people are looking for this one to falter right here. I don't think that it's there just yet. We don't even have bearish divergence on the daily. I'm sure that someone's going to say, but Krown. Oh, there's not even bearish divergence right here. I was going to say that there might be coming back to January 2020. No, there's actually not. It's making new highs with price action as well. So I realistically be looking for new highs here, and then put in some divergence, on another leg, and then play out a major down and consolidate lower. But again, same thing as Bitcoin, or same thing as all major markets essentially. Any sort of a monthly closure, and this one's looking really fucking good. Any sort of a monthly closure above 1850, or sorry, that's 1830 actually, and I'd be looking for new all-time highs coming into August. Does that mean that we can have a pullback all the way back down to like 1850 in the meantime? Yeah, absolutely. But overall, this is price discovery right here. It's quite literally a new all-time high. I don't want to sound like I'm fucking Mr. Boolah on gold. I really don't care about gold. I don't own any gold. I don't ever intend to really own any gold. I think it's kind of silly. But as far as pet rocks go, during times like this, people will play these up. And for what it's worth, this is one of the best charts for the last like half year or so, as it has had a massive long-term accumulation phase, and now just blasting through levels like it's its fucking job, because that's exactly what it should be doing. So very, very short term, I'd be looking for this one to come back down to like 1940-ish region. region. But you can see that this one's, very similar to Bitcoin in, in the same nature as well, trying to put in some sort of reaccumulation formation up here around the top. Like I said, I'd be looking for a short-term move back down to like 1930, 1940-ish region. But assuming that it can put in a higher low right there, I look forward to once again give another try towards 1970-ish region. And I imagine that comes along the lines of some, one of the economic events coming up later today, probably the FOMC meeting. Anyways, what do we have on the daily? Yeah, this is also very interesting as well. We're actually seeing a contraction phase come while gold moves to the upside on the daily, which would suggest that this probably does have some more as well. Let's go check out Microsoft. What's Microsoft doing? Did pop back up to almost to our level. I believe I said 206 to 208 yesterday. Only got up to about 20. Actually, whoa, not nowhere near. Actually, 204.5. This one's looking a lot more toppy as well. I would be looking for another swipe of the lows at 197-ish region. Probably a short-term bounce there. Below 197, especially on a daily total closure, that's going to be problematic, especially concerning that the monthly close is coming up in just a few days. This would be a damn good reversal here, at least for the medium term coming into August, very likely insinuating a target back down to the upper 180s region. So I would be, I would be defensive here because a lot of stocks are looking toppy here, and especially the techs that led this rally to the upside did all of the heavy lifting, Microsoft being a humongous one of that. Looking at monthly RSI, we have 1, 2, 3 drives of bearish divergence, especially if this acts as our new local high, but that won't be confirmed again, not even on Friday. It'll be potential confirmed on Friday, and then perhaps confirmed next week if we get continuation of the downside. But if that does happen, there are 3 strikes right there, and typically 3 strikes, and you get to play some downside. Anyways, looking at Apple, same thing. Very, 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 very long wick to the upside there. Looks like yesterday was just a sell right off open. We did hit our target there to 380-ish region. I'll be looking for this one to come back down today towards 355, 360-ish region, back down here and grind out this low. Probably a small bounce after that. Tesla, as we kind of open this one up with, is all kinds of wait, that's not what I said. Tesla is looking all kinds of Mr. Moosk's coin. I always say I'm a big fan of Mr. Moosk, but you just see the fucking gangs get involved in this shit as well. As with everything, I mean, there's the fucking Ripple gang, there's the Tesla gang, there's the gold gang, there's the Bitcoin gang for sure, there's the TA gang as well. Everyone just joins gangs and just wants to believe that whatever the gang believes. This right here is not bullish at all whatsoever. As long as we're below 1650, I mean, this is looking nasty. Short term, I'd be looking for it to come back down to 1400. Probably a small bounce there as well. Do we get continuation lower today? I probably unlikely today. I want to see the monthly close on this one as well. The monthly actually doesn't look all that bad, but and the weekly actually doesn't even look all that bad right now either. But overall, assuming that those those closures are met, maybe over the next week or two, below 1400, I would look for extension overall towards 1200, fill the gap coming in on the weekly right here. Probably another bounce there, and then we'll come back and analyze it. But overall, Tesla was the one that really blew off its top, going parabolic all along the way, and kind of like a general governor right now for the general market. As once this one kind of topped out, then everything else kind of followed. Microsoft, Apple, the other 2 strong ones of the techs, and then going into rotations with which SPY is showing now that we really do have some pressure down here. If this was going to be another move to the upside, I believe that we would have very likely seen it yesterday. This right here is looking like it wants to put in a lower high right here, coming in at that 323 level. So I would keep an eye on that one as long as we are below there. I do look at this as actually more than likely to come back down. Bearish divergence has been confirmed from this point to this point, and while we already have hit the target on that, to be fair, same thing here as the other ones. I really want to see the weekly and monthly closure both coming in on Friday respectively, and that could very easily drive a target back down to the 310-ish region, of which I'd want to come back and see that one in real time. The monthly is actually still looking fine to me, or at least it could potentially be fine. I want to see the monthly closure on Friday. If the monthly closes above 323 region, I would actually be bullish for probably a retest of the prior high and new all-time highs coming into August and September. But for right now, for right now, the daily, which would represent the short and medium term on this one, actually does look bearish to me, while the monthly actually still looks fine as it is right now. A lot of trading to go between now and Friday, but as it stands, the monthly, I should denote that if we close above, actually that's not going to be happening, or very unlikely to be happening. But 3,335. If we do that, then we actually will cross monthly Stokes back up to the upside. By the way, this is almost to the trend line that we've been seeing going all the way back to December 2011. So this is almost a 10-year trend line right here, by the way, that has been holding this bull market up ever since then, essentially on the monthly scale. So that's coming out of the 08, 09 crash right here, getting all the major lows along the way right here, right here, and more recently right here and here. So looking at that, I would say that I'd really reserve judgment for this one for now, because I don't really think that does the daily help out? I mean, yes, the daily is obviously looking down. Of course, I'm not trying to disparage that. I do think that it's going to it's going to retest like 319.5. But after that, does it bounce or not? I'd probably be looking for a bounce there, and then come back to it tomorrow and see what it is. It's the monthly closure on Friday, alongside the weekly closure as well, to a lesser extent. That is really going to be of interest right now. Looking at everything else, let's go check out maybe Japan really quick. Japan coming down to open up the day. Japan actually looking like it's starting to lose structure here. Not quite just yet, but very, 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 very close. Anywhere below 22,300. And I'd be looking for extension down to the 55 and 200 right here for another retest of that area. And this is going to really lose its overall nice formation right now, which I think it's kind of already in the process of doing. We even do have a daily jewel sell signal being confirmed on the 21st of July. That was not the actual high of this run, actually this one right here, which the jewel typically does get. It usually doesn't get like the ultimate high. It gets like the momentum drive, which is more akin to my style of trading, and more so what I focus on, which is how we that's how we fucking designed it, obviously. But fair enough. Anyways, what else do we want to see? Maybe triple Qs. What's triple Qs looking like? Looks like a lower high right here as well. I'll be looking for a retest of the low 250s, like 251, and probably a bounce there. And yes, we did hit our target from yesterday back up towards 260-ish region. So looking good here, but it's all short-term stuff right now. Bitcoin back above 11,000. And, if I really did have to call this one now, I actually do think that it continues here sooner rather than later. I think it's going to get another try to the upside at the very least 11.2 and then probably 11.5, and then set it up for potentially a really, really phenomenal monthly close on Friday. Again, big wild card today with the FOMC meeting. So if I'm just looking at straight charts, that would be my disposition. But for what it's worth, when I used to trade traditional markets as a market maker authorized trader on ARCA, I would actually not trade for like an hour and a half before the FOMC meeting, and then I would trade like pretty much right afterwards, because there would usually be some pretty nice trades. But for like an hour and a half beforehand, I would not trade. I'd actually pull all my quotes as well as a market maker, and just let people do what the fuck they want to do. And a lot of people will do that. And so if you are trading traditional markets during that time, understand that especially for trading options, markets are going to naturally be wider, and I would really caution against making moves there before you have clarity on the situation, because a lot goes down during those meetings. Like obviously they release, the first kind of initial statements, and then there's like, questions and shit afterwards. So, you might think that you got it right on the first initial one, and then they come back and say, hey, no, actually go fuck yourself. And then it moves the other way really, really fast. And the problem is that, the bots and algos are going to be able to move, 10 billion kajillion times faster than you, because they're actually operating. I'll tell you this right now. They're operating in not one of a decimal. That's six placements after the decimal to the right side. That's how fast they're operating on a second by second basis. So it's like literally six or whatever. I don't even know what that number would be. I guess millionths of a second. So yeah, kind of hard to compete with that. That's why if you are trading the lower term timeframes, understand that that's what, if you can't think that fast, you are by definition at a disadvantage there. Anyways, yeah, Bitcoin looks like it probably does pull through here. Not bad, Bitcoin. There you go. Let's go look at CMEs. Ooh, kitchen time! Get your fucking forks out! Jesus Christ. Here we go. CMEs look all kinds of weird right now on the daily, but it is operating on about a $200 price premium. It does look like an ascending triangle here on the 4 hour as well, a little bit more sloppy. I actually hourly kind of got it quite well. Let's just draw this one in. I'm sure that it has a measure move towards like maybe 11,000, or sorry, not 11,000, but 12,000 or whatever this 786 is right here. Actually, just under 8 or so, and I'm gonna guess that it probably does line up with that. Let's see. I'm gonna do a terrible job of it. Oh, what do you fucking know? Right up there towards the 786 from the breakout point. If that condition does get met. So technically speaking, hourly close on CME is above 11,335, and yeah, I would be looking for a test up there. That probably accounts for Bitcoin spot price action back around 11.5 region, of which I'd be looking for probably another short-term down after that. I don't think that Bitcoin breaks 11,500 on a higher term time frame closure, meaning like a 12-hour or daily minimum. Until we get another monthly, but for right now, this is looking good for short-term continuation, at least another try higher, and that's potentially sets things up for a very, very nice closure coming into what's it called, Friday's monthly, which is also going to be the weekly closure for CMEs as well. And looking at the volume here on CMEs, it's actually rather impressive, to be honest with you. Historical volatility percentile is going to be expanding on the daily as well, although it actually, this is a little bit concerning here. It would say that maybe we do find a nice top in this range if this trend line does hold. Volatility contracting after that fact would very likely come with price action coming to the downside, as we have seen during this phase. Contraction during the last half year typically comes during consolidation sideways and down in an overall up move, which is very, 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 very relevant. It would suggest that we'd probably spend another another couple months maybe coming back down, filling out the space between 10.5 and where we are right now, and then frustrating the shit out of people, but actually maintaining a long-term bullish posture in there. So fair enough. Let's see, what are we looking at on the medium and higher term time frame oscillators, because I do put quite a bit of emphasis on that, and it could very easily destroy my short-term bullish bias here. Looking at 12-hour RSI, we don't have any bearish divergence to be spoken of just yet. So again, I do feel like there's very likely another move to the upside here first. And, I'd at least be looking for some semblance of at least 2 drives of bearish divergence on a time frame like this before calling like a medium-term pullback. So I actually do think that we get some more continuation here. Momentum oscillators will remain to the upside as long as we're closing 12-hour dildos above 11.55, which right now we're kind of snaking around using the critical zone as support, which is actually a very strong read, but we're right there. I'd rather just wait for confirmation on the next 6 hours and 22 minutes. Looking at the daily, same sort of thing as well. Obviously, if we don't have bearish divergence on a 12-hour, we're probably not going to have it on daily. And guess what? We don't have it on a daily. So if Bitcoin does want to put in another continuation drive, and then maybe have some bearish divergence, at a higher level, maybe around 11.5 or 12,000 or something like that, then yeah, that's at the point where I'd really be looking for a medium-term pullback. Probably back down to the mid 10,000s overall. But for right now, there's actually not too many problematic things. RSI is getting quite aggressive away from the exponential right here as well. That typically does call for a little bit of a pullback, but do we get another drive first? I think it's very possible here. Everyone's going to be very, 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 very quick to short the first sort of reversal-ish type dildo that forms in on a daily. And after a major breakout, I think that's unlikely. Whenever Bitcoin trends, it typically trends rather hard, and in that regard, it can be very enticing to look at this as a top. But it's not even technically the doji dildo that you're looking for to begin with, because what it really should be doing is it should be actually marking the high, of which the day prior was a high. In fact. If they are going to work out, they typically do amount to that. So I'll just kind of bring you back maybe to like. Here's a good example coming out of the last sort of major low. Well, actually, no, this is not the last major low. This was 2019, beginning of 2019, right? Bitcoin puts in 3-month consolidation on the low, puts in an ascending triangle. We pretty much have the same sort of formation going on in the current times on Bitcoin, something like this, right? And during that time, we see historical volatility percentile contract rather aggressively for about 3 months right here. And then in March, end of March, beginning of April of 2019, massive girthy green dildo party to the upside. Now, during that time, Bitcoin the next day actually puts in a massive shooting star dildo right here. And I'm sure a lot of people shorted that because everyone was like really, really excited to I guess get short off that. But after a 3-month consolidation, your first move to the upside, especially after that aggressive of a historical volatility percentile read, is unlikely to be a reversal. I mean, it's just not. Unless if like you're gonna get the fake out from fucking hell, which I suppose can happen. I mean, it can't. Yes, of course it can happen. And with the FOMC kind of coming later today, I mean that that would be a good prospect for that if it is going to happen. But overall, does that get continuation ever? No, in fact, or maybe the next day actually $3 of continuation to the downside, but obviously on a closing basis, no continuation at all. Just up and easy for the next half year or so, or 3-4 months. So looking good there. And kind of the same thing what I'm thinking right here as well. An ascending triangle, a very bizarre looking one, but it does work. Well, it's not so bizarre, but it's just not like your most obvious one, I suppose. Getting resolved to the upside, that first major split to the upside, boom, yes, the next day pullback as people take profits at a major macro reversal. Pretty standard stuff. I'd be looking for sideways and probably more up from here. I mean, realistically, this looks more or less good. I really don't get bearish on Bitcoin on the long term, or sorry, not even on the long term, but actually, yes, I would say on the long term, this would be very problematic to close daily dodos back below 10.5. That would be rather nasty, and we could talk about a major fake out if that happened. But as you can see right now, man, we're not really doing that. It could definitely happen, yes. It's just need to see proof, not promises first. Okay, this would probably be a good time to talk about the weekly macro level as well, as we are approaching it once again. The 0.5 coming in directly at 11,500, also synonymous with the last major rejections going back for 3 years, all the way to January 2018, coming in this 11.5 region. This is institutional order flow dynamics at play, a concept that I referenced in the TA program rather aggressively during that video. So definitely go back and check that one out if you're not familiar with it. But it would mark a major macro change of behavior if Bitcoin does get back above this level. You can see that that's kind of where we found our initial first wick to the upside right here, getting the backfill going all the way back to August 2019. But realistically, because this area has been fraught with peril for the last 3 years, where all the big boys have been getting their short fills, what it looks like, that would also equally imply that if Bitcoin does close above that 11.5 level on a weekly, no less than a weekly, but a weekly, then we can start to talk about moon boy targets once again. 382 at 13,500 would be an area of interest. 236 at just under 1,600 or 16,000 would be an area of interest, and 20,000, it set in the general long-term bias that's it's just upside above that level. Also, I want to call back to this as well, or maybe we go back over to this chart right here. Yeah, I think it's on this chart. It is on this chart. Oh, cunt, fuck, or said the C word. YouTube really doesn't like it when you do that one. Anyways, whatever. Yeah, looking at this right here on CMEs, I did show this the other day. I want to briefly explain it once again. A little bit of an unorthodox inverted head and shoulders, but I do think that it works. The volume signature is proper. We got double left shoulder, that's completely fine. We got a very shallow right shoulder that would imply massive strength, and we're gonna have a chance to actually resolve this one to the upside this week with any sort of a closure, anywhere above 10.9, or what is this? Sorry, not even 10.9, 10.7 on a weekly closure coming in on in 2 days, Friday. So keep an eye on that as well. But this would have a measure move actually all the way up towards about 15,000 bucks, which at that point, CMEs probably have a nice big premium on price action for spot. Right now, it's only $200, which is actually rather aggressive. So I imagine it would be even more aggressive at this price point as well, probably around $500, which would align with that 14,000-ish region, 14,500-ish region, I should say. Anyways, a little bit more experimental here, but overall, it essentially shows that, on a very clean chart right here, as long as they're above that 10.5 pivot, I would err on the side of bullishness. Do I think that 10.5 gets retested, coming into next month? Yeah, very likely. But overall, I'd be looking at that as an opportunity, not because it's 100% guaranteed to work out. No, there's no such thing, or at least if there is, I haven't found it, and I don't know any professional traders who have found it after being around some of the best in the world, actually. But it would offer up a very nice and easy way to be managing risk below it, as long as we're above it, generally just looking good. If we do break it back down to the downside, then we can talk about filling gaps to 9,600. Gap boys can rejoice on that one as well. But here's the thing, you know, a lot of people are going to be talking about this this $9,700 gap right here. Or sorry, maybe better said at $9,650. Gaps do typically always get filled, yes, but there is a difference between just like your regular futures gap and then also your what I think should be referred to as like a professional gap. You typically get professional gaps when you're breaking out of like long form consolidations, typically to accompany some sort of pattern, and usually, you know, the move is not just like aggressive but violent, or I guess both of those are kind of the same thing. But let me compare these things. So what do I mean by that? Well, this was a professional gap right here. You can see the move was incredibly aggressive, you know, coming out of this consolidation, doesn't get retested for another like 3-4 months, right? Whereas this one right here, this one's within the context of a consolidation, right? And Bitcoin retested basically, you know, within the next few days. Same thing, you know, for these guys right here and right here, all within the context of that consolidation. Those are the ones that get retested usually sooner rather than later, whereas the big ones amounting to like a big breakout within the context of, again, in this case, a bullish reaccumulation formation, probably not going to get tested anytime soon. That's of a different nature right there. So while the Gap boys probably do get their due diligence at some point, 9,700, you know, don't forget that back on over here, people looking for that 8,500 gap in June 2019, they weren't filled for another 3-4 months in September. They did get their fills, yes, but it did take some time. So keep that in mind as well. As gaps are becoming a little bit of a meme with the way that kind of people put undue importance on them, or weird interpretations on them, actually is the better way of saying it. Anyways, let's see. Oh, 45 minutes into this video. What the fuck, man? Oh, Jesus. All right. Let's start to wrap this bitch up. It's insane. What the fuck am I doing with my life? Talking about magic internet money business, and we haven't even talked about like real assets. Well, we did talk about it a little bit, but I haven't talked about Eurodollar. Eurodollar still bullish, probably. No, we hit all of our targets there. I'd probably be looking for some sideways and down. Okay, let's go look at probabilities. Let's go back to the short-term time frame ranges. Particular interest on a 4-hour 10.9. To the downside would drive a move back down to about 10.550. Let's actually move this up right here, 10.550 to 10.600-ish region. But at the same token, a 4-hour delta closure above 11.2, I'd look for a short-term move to 11.5. Does it actually break above there? I would not feel comfortable talking about that today. Let's go over here and check out our levels, of which we can use 11.2. And to the downside, we'll use 10.9, I guess. Yeah, we'll have to use this on a lower term time frame as well. Let's look at a 4-hour right here. 4-hour probability showing above 11,200, actually just 1.5% probability. The downside, just over 18% probability. This is on a 4-hour though. Let's look at a 12-hour. 12-hour showing is being a lot more generous to both sides. 23% to the upside versus 45.5% to the downside. Daily showing 28.80% to the upside versus 47.20% to the downside. Now, keep in mind, these are only short-term and medium-term ranges here. The long-term range, I would be using 10,500 on a daily closure and 11,500 on a daily closure to the upside. If the daily does close above 11,500, I would have to look for the next move up to probably 12,000 actually. And beyond, I would constitute that, or at least treat it as a breakout. Would I rather see it on a weekly or monthly? Yes, absolutely. Do we get a weekly or monthly in the next couple of days? Yep, we do. So, will you get rewarded if you take a primary position on that? Probably, yeah. But for myself, I err on the side of conservativeness when it comes to trading. Looking at these levels though, which are again correlated with more or less long-term moves, 11.5 to the upside and 10.5 to the downside, I would say that these are a lot more equated to each other. 12% to the upside versus 17.5% to the downside. That is, that's saying that more or less we're more than likely to range here. We got more or less a 70% chance to range between 10.5 and 11.5, and that's what I'm looking for. Coming into the end of the week. We could also look at probabilities going a week out here as well. I think that this is actually rather interesting. In 7 days, we have a 12 12% probability to be above 13,355. By the same token, in 7 days, we have a 17.5% probability to be below 89.50. How helpful is that for the average trader? Probably not very helpful, but for options people out there, that probably is massively helpful. So, keep that in mind as what's most likely, what's 70% most likely to do? We're most likely to be within that range, which this is a fucking massive range here. But if you are trading options, then I do think that is relevant. And for what it's worth, let's whoops, that's not what I wanted to do. Let's look at the future and see what the rings are showing here. Yeah, the rings are showing actually slight downside pressure. We do see downside slopes there. 12-hour actually showing 12-hour showing the same thing. Bally and Pigs moms are losing momentum on both the error correcting and the regular. On both sides, on the 12-hour. On the daily non-error correcting is actually still moving up, so very interesting as well. But other than that, man, I think it's time for me to wrap up this video. If I had to wrap this one up, I do think that short-term Bitcoin pops back up and tests around 11.2. Does Bitcoin actually close above there on a 2-hour or 4-hour dildo? This is looking more or less good. If that does happen, I'd look forward to $300 extension to 11.5. If Bitcoin can close above 11.5 on a daily, would I look for immediate continuation to 12,000? Probably yes. It's just I'd really, because the monthly is so close to closing just in another couple of days. For myself, I'll probably wait for that. Maybe I do some options plays above there. By the same token, to the downside, a little bit easier here. 10.9, a good pivot on a 2-hour or 4-hour dildo closure. I'd look for an extension back down to about 10.6 if that were to happen, and then a bounce there, and then come back and analyze it after that. A daily or 12-hour closure below 10.5 or 10.550, whatever this level is right here, and I'd probably be looking for returns back down to the 10.2 and 10,000 even dollar marker right here. And then this is going to look a lot more like one major fake out, getting ready for a big move to the downside. But I actually don't think that that's what's happening right now. I think that Bitcoin, puts in some sideways here, maybe test back down to 10,500 again. Although I do think that testing 10,500 to 10,600 coming into August is very, very likely. It's just, timing these sorts of things is more or less going to be decided by how we act coming into the monthly closure in just a couple of days here. So, short term, I can really only speak to the short term right now. The long term moves have kind of been had, at least as far as I look at it. So I don't really have anything to add there. So with that said, I'd like to take a second to wish you well once again, wishing you the best, and the happiest of the happiest once again from a nice and rainy Helsinki, Finland. I'll be signing off now. Take care, and until next time.